Hey and welcome to the Creative Odyssey podcast, a podcast about entrepreneurship, creativity and personal growth by me, Emil Ruth. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Creative Odyssey podcast. This time I'm here with Mo Khayib or Chaieb. How do you pronounce it?
Chaieb, yes.
Chaieb. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being here. I hope you're good.
Yes, no, thanks for having me, Emil. Everything's lovely.
So you just recently moved from the UK to Canada, or moved back, as I understood correctly, right? So you're currently in
Yes,
Montreal.
correct. Exactly.
So tell me a bit about yourself. Who are you, Mo? In your own words, what do you do?
Oh wow, that's the dreaded question. Usually at parties, you kind of have nice and quick answer you can give people, but this seems quite like with an audience, so it's quite existential in a sense. But no. So my name is Moe Chaieb. I go by Mo with my friends and close ones. I'm a software engineer, producer, music producer, entrepreneur. I would say in the professional sense. I'm also a father of a little girl, a husband, and a few other things. Football, amateur football player also. But in terms of my background, I was born in Algeria. My parents and family moved when I was a toddler. Well, before I was a toddler, when I was 6 months old. Grew up in Saudi Arabia, actually, in the Middle East. Went to international school there. Studied in French. Went to French international school in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
The more time passes, the more I'm like, that was quite the funky combo, because you
Yeah.
grow up there, it's kind of like your norm, and you don't think twice about it. It's just your normal. And at 18 years old, after graduating high school, I moved to Canada. That's why I came here to Montreal to study at McGill University. And I studied computer science, which was kind of like the thing I fell in love with, in high school and middle school. But so I would say that's sort of like one of the most formative episodes for me was coming here. My parents were still in Saudi at the time, so I moved 9,000 kilometers away from them. No family, knew nobody here. Later on, we found we had some distant relatives and not so distant, some of them, but this is kind of like where I started studying computer science. On the music side also, that was one of my earliest passions as well.
Yeah.
But at McGill, it kind of started developing as well. I was playing in a band with some good friends. One of which is my co-founder today at timeoff.audio. So the story kind of starts getting, that's what I mean by it being a formative chapter, especially looking back at it now. I can continue from this point onwards. Not quite sure where you wanted me to start and finish, so I suppose we have the whole episode for that.
Yeah, of course, it can take so much time kind of rehearsing what is the most important facts about oneself. But I kind of love the experiment to know what my conversational partner in this sense would say when I'm asking them so what they are. And you can really early see the emphasis of what they highlight. And this is what I like to know. Even if the chance is high that it gets too existential, but I think the
Yeah.
most important factors came here. Um, but that's pretty wild. So Montreal, you can speak English and French, right? So that's a good thing that you are on the French Canadian side. But that's like a wild
Yeah.
combo. But you did not mention which instrument you were playing in the band.
Yeah, I was playing bass guitar. We're like a
Yeah,
rock band, like very influenced by, I'd say, Foo Fighters, Nirvana, Chili Peppers, that sort of style.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
growing up, I was the biggest Red Hot Chili Peppers fan
yeah,
I knew, you know. Obviously, I know that, you know, it's
yeah. They're
it's
cool.
a band with quite the fan base,
Yeah,
but yeah, Flea was like my hero. So I actually grew up playing guitar, but quickly I was like, I need to play the bass. Honestly,
yeah,
the bass as an instrument was such a this sort of like revelatory aha moment for me as a kid because
yeah,
I remember listening to music on like really crappy earphones
yeah.
where the bass you can't really hear it that well.
No,
And a lot of the bands and then like pop music, and I don't know what it was, maybe it was also just what I was listening to. The bass didn't do much other than follow the bass note of the chords that we're playing.
yeah, yeah,
And I remember with the Chili Peppers and the Arctic Monkeys, I remember listening to their album this in 2006. There were a few songs where the bass is just doing this insanely like intricate and different thing from the guitar. It was its own instrument. That's why I
yeah,
remember listening. I was like, "What is that?" It sounds so,
yeah.
because I was like, it was early in my musical sort of education. So I remember learning about bass guitar. Oh, because when you see it on stage from far, it kind of looks like it is a guitar, right?
It is the guitar, right? Yeah,
Exactly. And then I was like, "Oh, I told my dad, you have to take me to the guitar shop, right?" And I was playing with one. I was like, "Oh, okay, like it's longer neck, thicker strings, different sound and
mm,
stuff." Then that's when I started really falling in love with the instrument. So yeah, that was sort of like a big sort of milestone. It's just discovering what a bass guitar is, having been
yeah.
playing guitar as like a 8-year-old or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's kind of the unsung hero because you only really kind of acknowledge a bass or a bass guitar if it's missing. If you take a band and there is no bass player, you will, even if you don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
anything about music, it's just the vibration, it's the frequencies that are missing,
exactly.
even if they're just following like the chord progression or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like the bass in the
Yeah,
sense
yeah,
that
it's
it kind
like
of
we say
both.
in French, it's a double entendre, like double
Yeah,
meaning, right? It's
double
like,
meaning.
yeah,
Yeah, that's so cool. So you got onto your musical kind of element pretty early, and I think most will start around that age. And I think it's pretty cool that you have both like the artistic side and being musical and playing an instrument and being technical and being able to actually develop like an audio plugin. And it's so funny because I started producing at like 11 with kind of like the basic version of was back then Cubase and then GarageBand and then switching back to
nice.
Logic and stuff like that. But it's not like I still can play no instrument. And I'm kind of mad for my parents that they allowed me to quit my keyboard classes at like 2 weeks in and then said, you know how kids are. They get so quickly
Yeah,
drawn out of the stuff. And I just wish they were a bit more pushing me into learning this. But now I can't either
it's
play an
funny we say
instrument.
that now, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's funny. For me, it was like I have a similar experience, but so I was born in Algeria. Obviously, Arabic is like my mother tongue,
yeah,
but I was going to a French international school, so it was interesting. I was learning Arabic as a foreign language in a French school, and I remember getting to an age where it was sort of like annoying, I was like, I don't want to learn Arabic, right? And
yeah,
my parents were like, no, this is a red line. You're never gonna quit this, which
Yep.
obviously now in hindsight, I'm more than grateful. I'm like, it's funny how as a kid, you kind of like, your parents push you about certain things that they are right to push you on, right? And you only realize that in hindsight. And similarly, if they don't push on certain things, you're like, why didn't you push on that? So
Yeah.
it sort of highlights the importance of, I mean, I'm a father now, so this really strikes a chord with me,
Yeah.
where it's also
Quite
very hard.
literally.
If
Yeah.
you exactly, yeah, yeah. If you put yourself in their shoes, also, which I'm now in, dude, I don't know. What should I push
It's
on? What should I not?
it's so
It's
hard.
like it's such a fine
Yeah.
line where you can sort of like
You shouldn't force
it's
them.
really hard. You really have to
Yeah.
be in tune and with your child, but also, yeah. I think it's one of those things that's only obvious in hindsight anyway. You
Yeah.
can you can never be perfect. And
Yeah,
it's also
it's
never
kind of
too late. I think it's
yeah.
it's a lesson also that, you could go pick up piano classes. Obviously
Yeah.
there's all these reasons obviously the farther you are in life, the more responsibility you have, obviously it seems like we only ever get busier in
Yeah.
today's day and in this day and age. And you know, we also find we're amazing at finding excuses. Like
Yes.
some of them I think are
Mhm.
not excuses. I think, we all kind of like in pop culture, we hear about like brain elasticity and it's easier to learn languages and stuff like, of
Yes.
which music is 100% like a language in its own right and a
Of
symbolic
course.
system and all that. Um, so yeah, but I still think it's never too late.
Yeah. I think so too, and I'm just getting back more in. I'm trying to also kind of incorporate more real instruments. I think it's some kind of movement that I see that uh, I always loved electronic music, and I had no problem at all listening to all synth, all like digital music that it has basically no acoustic or recorded element in it. But
Yeah,
now,
same.
where like it's so easy to kind of produce music that way, especially when AI music just came out basically. And at that time, I really felt the need for incorporating more human element, more imperfections. And I don't really want to. Um, I could go the way, and you probably know, like virtual drummers or virtual bass guitar plugins, and that kind
Yeah.
of feels odd. I mean, for some instruments can be emulated, like pianos or something like that, because you play also you it's basically the same way of playing, but for like a guitar, you don't play them like you program a MIDI.
Yeah, no, I mean, it, this is a whole kind of universe of, there's so much history in this department in terms of, now we have MPE, like polyphonic MIDI, and just how do we bring that same level of humanness and expression to like digital music? No, it's yeah, it's like it's a topic that has like a very deep history, just even obviously on the technical side with
Yeah,
MIDI itself, but also in like the attempts and the techniques. And I do think it's an interesting space because that in and of itself is like a technical limitation in a way that digital music has. But in its way, in its own way, it's also like a sonic feature of electronic genres, right? Like, the
exactly.
kick exactly perfectly on the grid to the microsecond. No
Yeah,
drummer will ever be that on tempo, but yeah, but it is a thing that, we get used to, like the four on the floor beat, right? But now it's like it opens a creative choice. How much do you want it to be on the grid versus not? Do you want
Yeah.
it quantized? And just like those, you realize that like the slightest decisions like that can change a genre, a mood, make you dance differently, make you feel something different. It's it's quite something. There's also, I think, if you want to add the human touch, I mean, just for you, almost like as advice, you could explore sampling also, right? The world
Yeah,
of
that's
sampling,
true.
with the MPC and stuff. It's like, with like you go back to Dilla and like how you can add just with like 16 pads, like the most discrete digital fixed thing, just by sampling these records and re-recording them. The recording is already imperfect, the vinyl is imperfect. You could like chop it up, and now there's obviously many decades later we're in like full like, we have genres that are so super like very digital, but that try to sort of emphasize these elements, like, I love me a good lo-fi house and
Yeah.
lo-fi beats and all that, where it's so funny how they're created in the most digital forms, trying to recreate the most analog, imperfect
Yeah.
artifact of sound. I do think the juxtaposition and playing between the two is where you get the most interesting stuff, right? I mean, occasionally I like a good, like, super robotic, like, techno beat, with like no, could have been made by like robots, but it's just interesting. I think what I do what does speak to me from experience is whenever one element is missing, we kind of yearn for the other. If you are
Yeah.
to see them as like polar opposites, entirely like human, imperfect, like flowy, no grid, no tempo, free form, that can get sloppy and feel like what's happening, right?
Yeah.
And then the comfort of like a digital, structured, approach to music can also feel very sterile. And I think it's the same thing in on so many dimensions. It's not just like the instruments, it's the composition, it's the the rhythms, the sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about kind of creating the juxtaposition or creating a tension or certain something that you have like an element that stands out and kind of works in a way. And it's so hard now to come up with a distinct style. And even though the technical stuff was way more limited a few decades ago, like basically only few people really had the money to get the crazy equipment stuff, and they use all the same kind of things, but they all have like more or less their own sound. And now you have such a extreme way to choose from splice sampling,
It's overwhelming. I'm so
YouTube to
I for one
MP3.
I get overwhelmed by everything, and now you have like Suno and all the AI stuff, and I wouldn't even know
Yeah.
if I wanted to touch that, because I think that's where a lot of people tend to, me included, by the way, I'm speaking from experience, like get misguided with like anything creative, is that
Yeah.
we need to open up do away with creative barriers, do away with, any sort of limitations, right?
Yeah.
I think you do need, those limitations are actually like your canvas, It's like you need like some like a finite limited space, whatever dimension it is that you're on, that you operate within, right? So, and those limitations, I think, are what pushes you to even be creative, and I do think that it used to be that that's how we associate eras with sounds,
Yeah.
because this is where the science and technology side, I think, to me, it's sort of like this. I think it's something that speaks to me very deeply, that art and science are forever like intertwined.
Yes.
Even in the topic we're just discussing about, like, quantized, music and stuff. On one hand, people are like, no, no quantization. It needs to be like, it's an art, it's expression. You shouldn't care about being, everything perfect. And then you have people who approach it from like a science, like technical, no, but technically it has to be on the. And the reality is they feed off of each other, like these two approaches to anything really. Like I, for one, whenever I'm doing something very technical, like working on, the jobs I've had in like pure like tech, it's important to understand the human aspects and the nuances, and even for it to have meaning for me as a person, right? It needs to feel like, and programmers do describe this feeling of like almost, code as poetry, and like when you build an elegant, simple system, it's like this beautiful thing outside of its technical, even outside of its technical capabilities and features.
Right.
And again, so you get my idea here. I don't want to go like too back and forth, but to get back to the creative limitation side, even I wouldn't know. I'm very curious, 30, 40, 50 years from now, should we make it this far, hopefully, what we would look back on and say, what we would say like this era sounds like, because right now I have no idea. I think starting in the 2010s, I think early 2010s had a sound, I still remember, like dubstep, Gangnam Style, those.
Yeah, these kind
I
of.
would say like now we already,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, Swedish House Mafia. I already, like, just over a decade later, I can start feeling that was the sound of the early 2010s. But maybe that's just also starts. But it's so fragmented now. There's a million things. There's no even like a cohesive like culture, I would say, artistic culture that, I think social media, the internet has fragmented it like a trillion ways, I'm probably very cognizant in my corner of the internet and Reddit and whatever, the echo chamber that I live in. But so there's that side, right? There's definitely that side to it. But there's also, for better, for worse, and I'm like a music technologist, for better, for worse, it's like, it's never been so easy to make music, There's no limitations whatsoever. I mean, there are a few, otherwise I wouldn't be making plugins, but I still have ideas, The deeper you get, the more kind of like you see what the adjacent possible is, because that's definitely, wherever you are, you'll always see kind of like next steps. I suppose, as someone who wants to create.
Yeah.
But just to go back to, like I'm not sure what this era sounds like, because looking back at 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it's also somewhat arbitrary that we have to split it by decades, but you can kind of like situate, I mean, even before that, 50s, 40s, etc., you can situate a piece of art in its context. Obviously, there's a historic context, a cultural context, a social context that will like inform you on what the artist's life was like, what they're talking about, etc.
Yeah.
But let's look at it from purely a technical standpoint. The technology available to artists is 100% like a defining variable of the sound and the music they create.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, you couldn't have made dubstep in the 50s, right? It doesn't mean that the music in the 50s was less good. I mean, we still listen to Elvis Presley, we still We still listen to Motown. We still listen to the Beatles,
Right.
etc. You know, and they created such beautiful art with what we would consider today to be archaic. We wouldn't even call it technology, right? And it's funny, like I said, with the lo-fi genres, that we can only appreciate that in hindsight. And now we're almost trying to recreate the artifacts
Yes.
of the technology they had.
Yeah,
But our
that's the
technology
problem.
is too perfect. It's
Yeah.
actually hard today to make something analog sounding, you know, or like, because, you know, you're in Logic, you're in GarageBand, even it's hard.
Yeah.
Now you have to go get a tape machine and like just you have to live like a Luddite, you know, and you
Yeah.
know, with no technology to be able to do that. But that music had defining limitations that were a core feature of them, right?
Yeah.
One last thing. This is my favorite example of that is because it's also quirky, even in the digital era started, quote unquote, with like digital synthesis and
Mm.
you had one of the big commercial successful digital synthesizers was by Yamaha, the DX7,
Yeah.
right?
Iconic.
Before that, obviously, you had analog. Exactly, it is iconic, right? But it's so funny. What made it iconic is that it was actually so hard to program that all the producers that were using it didn't know how to make new patches for it. So they just stuck with the 32 or whatever presets that came in this thing.
Yeah.
And now every 80s track you listen, you know, from Michael Jackson to geez, the names are escaping me now, but has this like very iconic DX7 like Bell electric piano
Yeah.
digital sounding thing that is
Yeah.
so beautiful, and we associate with that era, but it literally was we look at it like whimsically, like, oh man, yeah, like, you know, the 80s synth and stuff. But you look back at it then, they were so frustrated. They're like, I don't know what to do with this thing. Let me just play the
Yeah.
factory presets, you know? Now
Yeah.
I open
There you have
any
yeah, definitely. And
sorry, go
now,
ahead, yeah.
sorry for interrupting you, but it's exactly the point, because not many people were like you. Because either they are like the programmers and know how to kind of patch a sound mostly, or they are the musicians trying to play something, and they came off a piano and now playing like a DX7 and they don't know how to do anything besides playing the keys. And if you have someone who's like you, but time travel a bit into the past, and then now you have some people who can kind of patch, probably more probably with like modular synths, but the DX7
Mm,
was really hard to kind of get. But you're right, the
yeah, no, I
old
could definitely
like
see myself
cheesy
losing
sounds, yeah,
days making patches, but also maybe kind of giving up, you know,
yeah,
and just doing what everyone was doing.
probably
But
they sounded good.
yeah, yeah, no, it's and again, I think you touched on something also, which I think is 100% the ethos of what I'm doing with Time Off Audio, and it's this again, this art versus science, right? When you're in
Yeah,
the studio, do you want to think about, do you want to be solving technical problems, or do you want to be
no,
in touch with your artistic side, right? You want to be like in flow as long as you can, right? I think as much as you can. I think that's something people would
yeah,
agree on. Now you have someone like me who enjoys both, right? And when I was making music professionally, it was it was interesting because on some days I didn't even have to force, like, you know, I had this sort of like schedule where I was like in the studio every day,
yeah,
and most days it just came naturally, right? But then some days I didn't, I still had this like technical bug, right, in my head. I was
mm,
like, okay, I'm not really gonna work on music directly, but I have this new plugin. Let me see if I can make it instead of like duplicating 8 instances of this plugin, let me see if I
Yeah.
can route it in a way where I can have like 2 instances do the kind of processing I need and have
Yeah.
it multi-output or route to the right group. And I was like optimizing this Ableton template that like honestly kind of became a lab experiment. It was insane, man. It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you had an omnisphere like feeding 8 synth tracks. So I only had like, feeding it multiple MIDI channels and stuff. And that's kind of like where I was starting to, and this was before I knew how to program plugins. I already had the bug of, I love optimizing workflow. And I was like basically, and the examples I just shared are not that useful. It was just like maybe more for fun and for like intellectual,
Yeah.
in the tech world we call that like being nerd sniped, It's like when someone tells you, "Oh, I bet you can't solve this equation." When
Yeah.
you're a nerd or like a geek, it triggers this sort of like attack on your ego. You're like, "Of course I'm going to do it."
Yes.
Maybe when I would see my CPU spike on Ableton, I don't know, something made me take that personally. I was like, okay, I'm still gonna keep pushing with this session. I'll find ways. So it
Yeah.
was, but I started seeing that obviously I enjoy both, right? And I know I kind of have this affinity for both, like ways of thinking or ways of creating, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
ultimately, when you understand how the music industry works, even let's zoom in, not zooming out to the industry, but like a creative team, how a song gets made, how a record gets made, an album, etc. And you can kind of like start extrapolating like projects, tours, etc. Anything artistic you see has a technical team behind it, right? Like when
Yes.
you record something before even it's gonna make it to Spotify or TV or the radio, there's like you have the audio, you get the mixing engineer, mastering engineer, and these people are like need to be in tune with the artistic side and the technical side, right? You need to
Yes.
understand the artist, you need to understand their workflow, what's gonna get the best out of them, what they need, right? But you also need to understand the broadcasting specifications of, audio on
Exactly.
TV, on radio, like what, LUFS, loudness, formats, all that for different like formats. You need to understand how these AirPods sound, you need to understand like how people are going to consume the audio. And these people are, I think, right now they're a bit our target audience, like mixing and mastering engineers, because we the utility that I create with the plugins, with timeoff.audio plugins, is sort of like lives in this world of understanding you are a technical person, you need tools, and these tools, but you're also a creative person, and you need your tools not to be like, extra steps, and they need to
Yeah.
remove steps from your workflow, right? Which is this entire idea of making plugins that are meta plugins. So instead of, I'm not making a plugin to replace your X, Y, and Z, your compressor, your favorite reverb, your favorite de-esser. It's more
There's
that,
already so many. Yeah.
exactly, it's more
Yeah.
that if anything, I'm sort of competing with like DAW templates and DAW routing things, I'm more like take the workflows that you're using your plugins in, and here are the tools that let you combine those plugins and get there much faster and also be more creative, while you're at it. So it's really this is sort of like I don't want to say foundational principle. It's not that serious, but it's sort of like the spirit in which came to me quite naturally because it stemmed from my own approach to the musical creative process and understanding both the creative side and the technical side and how they're
Yeah.
so constantly intertwined.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that you kind of really have a cool and solid concept with time of audio because it just makes sense. Besides, I tried both that are available. I think the multiband is not available yet, or is it in the development?
Soon,
I
soon.
tried, yeah.
Everyone's asking me about it. I think
I had
that's definitely the
some
most
kind of,
interesting one.
yeah, some other kind of workflows way to kind of recreate the multiband thing, but
It's coming.
for
It's
the
coming for
yeah,
sure.
the transient and the mono stereo, and I really like the idea because just as I said, there are already so many reverbs, so many compressors. I think I bought in like the 15 years of producing music. I don't know why I bought probably 50 different compressor plugins. I don't even know why, and I don't even use most of them. And it's
That
such a
is the
all of it is such a typical kind of producer thing to do, especially when I
100%,
kind of,
man.
yeah, I even got like audio engineering diploma. This is when I started to as I wanted to kind of produce
Very
more
cool.
professionally, and I thought it makes sense for me to become an audio engineer to be a better producer. I still like to produce more than to mix, but I can mix. And, that's why I got so curious about so many analog emulations, and I got hundreds of different plugins that basically do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean the
But
emulation
yeah,
space, the
yeah,
skeuomorphic like UIs, and I think again it's so funny that a large section. It's not funny. It's actually, I say it in that it's very interesting in
yeah,
that
yeah,
for a long time we've only associated plugins with analog emulations, I think that's
yeah,
pretty much what, I think in a and it's kind of interesting. It happens in so many, whenever a new medium is created, people frame that medium in a way that is very limiting, and they frame it via the medium that came before it.
yes,
Let me give you an example. I think I was reading about this when the first TV shows started. When TV became a thing.
yeah,
What did you have before? You had radio, right?
yeah,
It took the first TV shows were not that creative. TV didn't give rise to cinema right away. The first TV shows were simply two people talking on camera.
yeah,
It took people a long, but people enjoyed it, right? They're like, oh, this is what I do with the radio, and I can see the person, it's cool. But it took
yeah,
like another, a few like years for people to be like, wait, why are we doing radio shows on TV? We can do new shows that we never, new entertainment,
yeah,
right? Cartoon can be a thing, animation,
mm,
you know, even I think the first TV shows were like a camera pointed at a theater, somewhere, which is kind of, that's
yeah,
fair, it's like this, we have this way of just retrofitting new technologies, before we see the
exactly.
technology for what it can do. And I think the plugin space suffered from this for so long that it's another reason that I was starting to get a bit sort of frustrated. And, you know, I feel like the emulation game is like solved. It's a solved problem for me, It's like I don't want
Yeah,
to. I'm not interested in competing with Universal Audio and these guys because they have like these DSP PhDs and all that. It's like they're how close are you? And it's also diminishing returns, right? Like we can
yes,
get very close to analog, but we'll never get there. And I understand the economic sort of incentives that make emulations interesting, right? Like you don't
yeah,
have the space and the funds for a profit synth. Just get the software emulation, fine. That's
yeah,
cool, but every interesting piece of analog gear has been recreated 100 times, right?
yeah,
and we're still stuck in, but I think it's changing. It's not just, obviously, I'm not claiming Time Off Audio is the first to think this way. You have very, very cool companies out there. You have Sonable, they're doing some digital
Yeah.
first plugins. I have a good friend started this company called Noiseworks Audio. They're based in just outside Düsseldorf in Germany, actually.
Ah, nice.
Um, they do these very cool workflow centric plugins, like digital workflow centric plugins.
Ah,
In a way, we have
yes,
very
yes.
similar ethos
Yeah.
to them. And yeah, I think it's yeah, we've been missing out in a way. And I think it's interesting that you talk to any producer who produced over any period of time, they'll tell you, I've accumulated plugins I don't use,
Yes.
I don't know why. And I think the marketing machine behind it has been somewhat obviously complicit in this, in making us feel like this is what we need, right?
Yeah.
You need this like Neve
Exactly.
channel strip emulation. You need this Prophet emulation. You need this thing, right? Whereas I say this as a plugin maker, like the stock plugins in your DAW are all you need, really, right? Then depend, use them, use them like to their full potential. Then you will hit
Yeah.
limitations. Then inform your next plugin purchase from those limitations, right? And for me, a lot of those limitations, I was seeing what other plugins were doing, and they didn't let me combine my own plugins, right? If I want a transient processor or like a mid-side channel strip or like multi-band processor, not just compressor,
Yeah.
they're telling me, oh, use our 16 built-in effects. No, but I don't want more effects. Again, it goes back
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah.
I already have Valhalla Vintage Verb that I love. I already have Valhalla Supermassive. I have Saturn for saturation. I
Yeah.
have all I need. I want to be able to use those inside the workflow you're giving me. And I didn't really
Yeah.
find. There's obviously some people who've attempted this, but so this is where I was like, I gotta make this myself
Yeah.
because it's not there. And so the same process that I think consumers should follow in terms of like finding, the plugins they need instead of following, the latest. And I get it, man. It's Black Friday.
Yeah. I'm
I hopped
guilty.
on that Sound
Yeah.
Toys bundle like right away,
Yeah.
So,
Yes, some things are great, and you will see other people using it, and they sound good. And sometimes it's just kind of I've seen all of these reels on Instagram lately where the interviewer is quickly asking them for their favorite plugins and like what are you using for kick, and some say nothing, or bass then say Fab Filter, EQ, Pro Q, and then they say for vocals like RVox, and for delay
let's
they say
go.
just the waves delay, just the basic kind of plugins that are so overlooked, but they're used for many years. And I have too many delay plugins. It's I
Yeah.
basically only use a few which I really like, but I think I'm totally done with like delay. But you're right. There are some ways that are just done and overplayed. But I gotta check the noise
No, for
works. I
sure.
had some, yeah,
Yeah, no, and I think so. I was at an event in London. So being in London
yeah,
was great for connecting with the audio industry.
yeah, definitely,
I think London is one of the, capitals of music tech, if you can say it that way. I
yeah,
think,
probably,
Berlin, LA, Tokyo probably, and London. Um, and I forget the name of his name is Mo something. We shared we shared a first name or a nickname at least, and it was such a validating thing. I don't know this man. He was on the panel like talking on stage, and
yeah,
he is, I think, a marketing executive at Plugin Boutique, right? So the largest
Ah,
online retailer
yeah,
of plugins.
they're
And
doing
he
a
said
great job.
something that felt, yeah, they said something, he said something that I've been thinking to myself, which is sort of like in the lines of, along the same lines of what we've just been saying, which is for far too long, we've been marketing the wrong things to producers and music professionals in
Yeah.
terms of the plugins that we push to them. Oh, it's not always the things they've been asking for, or it's not that process of what gets created is not informed
Mm.
by the limitations they're seeing. It's more like playing again. I think this it plays on this nostalgia almost, or what people know, and getting stuck in the past of music and the analog world.
Mm.
I for one, I think I got tired of that like very early on. I was like, I'm not gonna do analog, I'm not gonna buy analog gear even for my own studio or my own process.
Mm.
Screw it. I'm laptop only, I'm digital
Mm.
only. Like I live and die by this. And that's okay, right? If there are
That is
limitations there,
totally
then that's
fine.
okay. I'll work with that.
Yep.
But just like it can, I encourage people and music creators to sort of live by that and let the true limitations, not what the latest marketing campaign or BFCM is telling you, actually inform your research and okay, what is it that I actually need? Because that becomes like a fine-tuning process of your own creative, you know, journey and like understanding, right? Like, why am I missing this, right? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? And you're like
Yeah.
actually an active participant in that. The same way that that's the process that I encourage creators and developers, and which I'm trying to follow myself, which is to actually be in tune with what problems are out there and create solutions for them. Right? Obviously, you have to do marketing at some point. You have to be able to show your, message your solutions in a compelling way, but
Yep.
it should never be the other way around. Don't invent a solution to a non-existent problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the industry has been definitely, yeah, like victim. I don't know if victim or I don't want to play like there's no
Mm.
culprit there, but it's been the dynamic. And this executive from Plugin Boutique said exactly that, and I was like, this was one of those moments where someone says something and you're like, yes, that's what I've been saying, man. I've been,
Mm.
this is what I'm. It's like a validating thing. It's like quiet validation. I didn't talk to anyone about it until literally now, where he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, he's like, going forward, we as Plugin Boutique and as an industry, we're gonna drastically start, we're gonna drastically change the approach to which we actually even ideate plugins. We actually want to create tools, right? And
Yeah.
it sounds like finally like people, are understanding that we need new ways of like thinking about plugins and audio software, and not just like these like black boxes that replace analog gear. Because that's always going to be there, but I think it's over time it's going to become like a subgenre of the plugin space. And hopefully, I think with what we're trying to do, with Noiseworks is doing, with Sonable, there's like a whole AI component to things.
Yeah.
I think we're start seeing like an ecosystem that is going to evolve drastically in capabilities, and hopefully people are going to start looking at plugins differently also.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's such an interesting field where I feel kind of the same way as you do. And I think I kind of got at least the reason for me why I got so many of these almost the same kind of plugin. It is kind of the missing out. You're right. They kind of create the
Yeah,
feeling
yeah,
of, no, we are closer to the original. And then the other said, no, we are much more authentic recreation of the algorithms, and then you kind of say,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
what I
And I
just
get
want the
that part
thing.
too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I get that part too. I think I will caveat everything that I've said with also we're human beings, you know,
yeah,
we're creatures of, you know, we're of yeah, of you know, we're not always rational and not everything we do is like utility based. And I'm the first one, you
no,
know, I've you know, everything I've said I think had this like undertone of like, you know, you have to think rationally and act that way, but I think there's this other side of the plugin sort of like user experience, which is that they're collectibles, you know? Oh yeah,
yeah,
my favorite producer uses whatever, like Silent, you know, like the synth from the late 90s or whatever. Like I'm gonna use it
yeah,
too, or at least you buy it because you saw someone. It's like you
yeah,
own it now, you know, and that's okay too, you know. I think it's really I think when people start to identify their creative sort of barriers that a plugin isn't going to fix it like, you know,
no,
always, you know. I think it comes from research and understanding and workflow and yeah, I think something about the plugin space is deeply related to this, that people, yeah, treat them as collectibles, or at least they're these very attainable, you know, both financially speaking and also like in terms of distribution. They're so easy to get, right? Like
yeah,
during the COVID lockdowns, I remember a lot of producers were stuck in their studio and at home and like everyone, and
yeah,
it became very popular for them to start doing like live streams, right? You know, like I remember I was
definitely.
watching the disclosure ones like every
They were
few
great.
days or
Yes.
whatever. It was
Yeah.
crazy. I think that level of you're literally watching Disclosure like go back to, you know, their biggest hits, you know, and just open up the Logic session. They're like, oh, here's this plugin here, here's this plugin there, and you're like, oh wow, they use the same plugins as me, or oh, actually they're missing I'm missing this or this and that, and
Yeah. And
we
I
do
love
tend to
disclosure
over.
for, yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
sorry.
And no, it's just because their first greatest hit, Latch from Disclosure, is
Yeah, with
basically
Sam Smith,
produced
right?
with, yeah, with Sam Smith, was produced
Yeah.
with stock plugins only. And this is the example for me to know you don't really need that to sound great. They are just talented and they are dedicated, and that's why they sound so
Yeah.
good. But
Yeah, and I think
sometimes it's
a
more an
lot of what they were
inspiration.
saying. Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of I don't remember. Obviously, it's already years ago now, which is crazy to look back on.
Yeah,
But I think all the big professionals also remind people of this, that hey, your DAW and stock plugins are all you need to create music, and you know, start there. You know, don't start
yeah,
with like getting, you know, everything you can get. Just get the essentials and learn from there. And naturally, you'll need tools. You'll have a specific workflow. You'll have specific problems. That's when hopefully I think the plugin industry will meet you. And I hope that it becomes like this mutual sort of implicit contract over time that, you know, and I
yeah,
think if you look at around us, I think it's the story of like all sorts of industries, man. It's not just, you know, we're talking here about plugins, but, you know, most of the stuff we buy, do we really, really need, you know? I would say no. But yeah, you know, and that's not always bad. I'm not trying to demonize that, but yeah, I think in my own way in the music technology space, we're trying to be guided by that, creating really, really useful tools that help people work faster and get more creative with the
yeah,
plugins they already own, you know. Don't go buying more reverbs and this and that, and just unlock more, yeah, more utility out of your own plugins and use them for the workflows that you already know but just want to do much faster, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
in a more playful way.
That's so cool. Yeah. I just wanted to, I don't know why, but I just wanted to let you know how I first tried out the time of plugins before we can go to the outro. Um,
Yeah, sure.
the first thing I tried is to on a bass, on like a synth bass or a kind of 808 sub thing. It was the mono stereo, and I wanted to have reverb only on the stereo. But then I've seen that it's mono only, and so the signal is mono. And then I tried something else, but that seemed to me like reasonable to have like a clean mono bass signal and only have reverb on the stereo field. But
Yeah.
I'm trying it on another patch. And the other thing was the transient, where I just on like a snare sample and had some, I don't know where I got it from. So your plugin reminded me of some other plugins that I've bought and almost forgot, some or random free plugins you collect along the way. And it's just
Yeah, yeah.
an
I think that's
yeah,
something I want people to have is, oh, I have this. I can use it in this way.
yeah.
It's like
It
it's
was
like
just a
another
drive knob.
interf.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. And
it's
I
just
think
one
I
knob.
think
Yeah,
going forward, I think for me, I'm playing with this idea of like partnering maybe with other plugin manufacturers and companies in ways that,
yeah,
I think in ways that help them, showcase their plugins in these specific workflows, right? Because
mm,
it's yeah, I think there's a space there that we're we're looking into,
yeah,
and a company that is has done that, but in a closed ecosystem is Kilohertz. I think they're from
yeah.
Germany as well. You know,
I think they're Scandinavian, but they do amazing job.
oh,
They're
okay.
so yeah.
Yeah, no,
They
I think
I
I
love them.
love what they do. I love
Yeah,
what they do, and I hope we can partner with them one day. I know they have
yeah. That makes
multipass, and
sense.
we're gonna come out with Dime MB, so that's gonna be interesting. But
Yeah,
some maybe a playful
yeah,
rivalry there. But no, the ecosystem they're building is very cool, and I
yeah,
think what essentially we're gonna try to do is build that ecosystem, but more out in the open with all the
yeah,
VST3 plugins out there. And I know it's maybe crazy. I don't know how I'll feel about this in a few years, but I'm very excited in that. Not many people have done that or attempted that. Um, a lot of the companies, they want to build their own closed ecosystems
mm,
of like plugins that talk to each other and work with each other. But that's another thing I think going forward you can expect from Time Off Audio is I think we started with these intuitive, like useful workflows that reuse your existing plugins, but going forward it's really leaning into the ecosystem of your own plugins and making that
yeah,
like very giving you things that maybe the DAW is not giving you, right? Because if you think about your DAW and your plugins, all it does is a black box on a track. If you want to share it with someone who uses another DAW, you can't.
mm,
If you want to
yeah,
do more fun things and with around like chain presets and have your DAW have an understanding of the plugin
mm,
that's just outside of the parameters of the plugins, it doesn't really do that, which is a
mm,
bit of an old limitation already because we have AI and we have LLMs and the manuals of these plugins are out there and you can understand the techniques that they're used in. So
mm.
the
Good
interfaces
point.
can become a lot more interesting than just the knobs
Yeah,
that the plugin is giving you. Um, anyway, I think I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit in sharing all this, but yeah,
yeah. It's so cool
some
that you
stuff
share
that's
this, and
that's
I'm super excited where this is going, and I will definitely try to use like the time of bundle more often and see if that's something that sticks. And it's something that all music producers need to be honest with themselves. Is this something that fits my workflow? And I think it does. And I don't want to get too far, but as you mentioned kilohertz before, the only thing that I could imagine is timeoff.audio having like a section of like utility things that you can load that are just load right in, just like volume and stuff like that. So you just have like
100%.
utility. So if you
Yeah, that's coming
open it
too.
up and then,
That's coming too. Yeah,
yeah,
that's coming
that's so
too.
cool.
I
Just
think we
like,
got overly
yeah,
ambitious on I would still defend the way we've started, which is that, you know, I started by addressing the gap, right? Which is
yeah,
we want these
yeah,
workflows with your own plugins. But obviously, I think it creates, you know, sometimes you don't want to have to scan, you know, your plugins just to put a bit of saturation on the transient, or, you know,
yeah,
improve the reverb on the tail, etc. So definitely, that's something a lot of producers have told me about
yeah.
that, and
And it fits the
yeah, we're
ethos.
gonna come out with exactly. We're gonna come out with like built-in effects as well, but not limit you at that, which is what a
No,
lot of the companies are doing.
yeah,
So yeah, you get best of both worlds. You can get cooking right away, but if you have a favorite X, you know, insert effect here, then it's still good to go.
yeah. That's really the thing to wrap it up. That's the thing I have with multipass, and I'd love to use it, but then there's just a certain kind of saturation that I want to have, and I couldn't load there. So you're really filling the gap here, and I'm super excited to try
I'll send
that.
you the
And
beta when it's ready.
yeah, please. And I can show you some examples later, or I can send you some. And I'm super
Amazing.
grateful for you taking the time. It was a funny conversation, and I need to stop, otherwise it gets like a 2-hour conversation. You can basically never
Yeah,
stop.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, thank you for having me, Emil. Pleasure talking with you, man.
Yeah, I wish you good luck with your entrepreneurial vision. And it's like you have like clear vision of what problem you want to solve, and a clear like mission statement. That's why I really appreciate the entrepreneurial side. And I also want to check out more of your productions. And I've seen there's something on Spotify. You could also, for the listeners, you could check out Mo's works on Spotify and see that he knows what he's talking about. And also, if you're in the audio sphere, consider trying out the Time Off bundle. I think there's probably a sale running on too, right? Is there currently a sale?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're on the BFCM train ourselves.
Yeah. But I've seen like the ad, and it's pretty cool. And you know, if you swipe more forward, you get a bit more of the discount. And that was so
Yeah,
charming,
that's
and
my
like,
yeah,
yeah,
my marketing partner is very he's a very funny guy, and like just
yeah,
you know, just very creative, and he channels that into he's
yeah,
starting to channel that into our messaging as well.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. It definitely makes sense. Of course, if you bundle them, you can discount them. But the only thing that is kind of annoying with Black Friday sales is that you get the missing out feeling. And I do think your marketing is just right, and I really appreciate the design language and everything. And I will let you know how this goes on in my production, which and I recently
Please
got
do.
onto Ableton, and Ableton is requiring some more thought than Logic is. So I'm
I
letting
love
you know.
Ableton. It's my go-to. It's my
Yeah,
go-to. Let me know
I
if you
think
have
I'm
questions. I'm
old
happy to
enough.
share.
Yeah, for crazy rerouting ideas, I will let you know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. If you've enjoyed listening to my podcast, you can show support by following me and hit the bell to never miss out on my latest content. I'd appreciate a positive review too. You can find more of my content on www.emilroot.com. Thanks and bye for now.